When did you think about learning how to fly?
Well, we saved up our money. My Sanford Hardy and I saved up our money, and a barnstormer came through there that had a Waco and an open cockpit airplane, and we got a ride in it, and that made up my mind right there.
What year was that about?
That was when I was about 12 or something like that, and then and I had a very, very distant relative who came to town. My father died when I was 15, and he came to town, and his son had just graduated from Randolph Field, and he told me all about that, and I said, that's what I want to do.
Now, for people that don't know what a barnstormer is, can you sort of describe what that is?
Well, the barnstormers were the early aviation. The pilots would just go around the country and land in cornfields and take people for a ride and maybe put on an air show.
So those are pretty exciting people that did that. Huh?
That's right.
They had a lot of courage.
Oh yeah, and they were their own mechanics and all that. It was a way of life.
What kind of a plane was that first one you saw? Was it like a biplane?
It was a Waco, yeah, and then a Ford Trimotor came in, and we rode that too.
What did your family think when they heard you were up in the plane?
They didn't like airplanes. They thought they were very dangerous, and my mother didn't like the fact that I'd done it, but she understood, and when I decided, I had to finally get her permission. I learned how to fly before I was 21, and I had to get her permission to do it. She said, "You really want to do this?" And I said, "Yeah." She signed the paper.
So when you were young, you sort of you knew what you wanted to do in your life?
That's right. I'm one of the few, and also I'm one of the few people that that I really adored what I did all my life. I wouldn't take vacations because I was afraid something would happen and I wouldn't be there. But I loved airplanes, and I flew until 2 years ago, the whole time, and I came down with macular degeneration, and that stopped my flying. There was a Christian Eagle, see on the bottom left-hand side?
Yes, sir.
That was an acrobatic airplane, and I had a part ownership in that.
So you went to college, Texas A&M,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you started to take lessons to fly?
Yeah. The government came out with a program to get people interested in aviation, and they would give you, if you were a sophomore in college, they would let you, they'd give you a private pilot's license, and they had 2 more programs after that. But I got the private pilot's license in 1940.
What kind of plane did you learn on?
It was a Taylor craft. It was a 60 horsepower, little high wing airplane, like a Cub, except you sat side by side.
Do you remember the first time you soloed?
Oh yes, I got the logbook right there.
Where did you solo at? What kind of plane?
It was a it was a Taylor craft, and I remember my instructor.
What did you?
He had about 100 hours of flying time, which I thought was fantastic.
How did it make you feel when you did your first solo?
I felt good. I felt real good about it.
Did you tell your family about it? Or
Oh yeah.
what was their reaction?
Oh, they were always interested. My mother was very interested in my flying. Even when I got into flight test, I told her about it. We were over at Grant County, and the airplane was out of commission, and they had to make a modification. So we were hunting rabbits out there in the desert, and I told her about shooting this rabbit, and she said, "Well, send me a rabbit's foot." So I sent her a rabbit's foot, and he stayed right there. And she put my wings on, and she carried it the rest of her life.
Oh yeah, it's still there.
There it is.
That's the one you get her, huh?
Yeah,
Wow.
got no wings.
You kept that with you?
No, I didn't. She kept it until she died, and then I got it done.
Wow, that's a real one too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, when you were learning to fly, did you do it all alone, or did you have buddies that were into it with you at the same time?
Well, not particularly. I didn't have any. I did in flying school in the Air Force, but not in CPT.
So now, 1939, when stuff started getting pretty rough in Europe, were you thinking about getting involved in the service?
Yes, I'd already made up my mind that I was going to go to the army, and I made up my mind for that in 1935. See, so I was already thinking that way, and I took ROTC in college, of course, and I was in the holster on field artillery. I enjoyed that, and I wouldn't have been in the service, but I would rather been flying airplanes. And I went home after the sophomore year and told them I was going to quit college and go to flying school. And they said, "What do you want to do that for?" And I said, "There's a war coming, and I want to be in airplanes." So I was in flying school when the war started.
Now, do you remember where you were at on December 7th, 1941?
Vividly.
Can you tell us?
I was. It was our first open post. The flying school that I was in was Cal Aero. It's Ontario, California, and we had first time we could have gotten off the base after we started was the weekend of December the 7th, and we were in Hollywood, and we had gone to a movie before we went back to the base, and they put a thing on the screen that said Pearl Harbor had been attacked, and fortunately one of the boys that was with us knew where Pearl Harbor was. Nobody else knew where it was. So,
how did things change after that happened?
Well, it got real interesting. Pretty soon after that, they shelled a submarine surfaced off of Santa Barbara and shelled the oil field down there, and so we were guarding the airplanes at night and flying in the daytime, and we only had very few Army people on the base. The civilians were all. The instructors were all civilians, but we had some people in an Army dispensary there, a hospital, and we had the check pilots, but those were the only direct people.
Now, you said that you started actually in the service in October of 1941.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you said commissioned, what's that mean to somebody that's not in the service? What's a commission mean?
A commission is a commissioned officer. All officers are commissioned. And, they've got a commission with the government. In those days, you had to put in a pay voucher and ask to be paid. And that was your commission, and you're commissioned for life, see. And unless you resign or something like that, you can resign it, or the government can decide to and there are various types of commission. You have a reserve commission or a regular Army commission, and the same in the Air Force.
Now, you were ROTC for the Army, though, originally?
That's right.
And so
they didn't have an ROTC for the Air Force at that time.
So you did artillery for a while.
Yeah.
They just let you switch over?
Oh well, oh yeah. I didn't get a commission from the Army. I was just in training to be a commissioned officer, reserves officer training course, and so I didn't get that commission. But the first commission I got was in the Army Air Force.
So in those days,
Army Air Corps, actually.
Yeah. So in those days, it wasn't really the United States Air Force.
It was the Army Air Force.
So you had to wear Army type of uniforms.
Oh yeah.
Did you go to drill?
We did that all the way through the World War II, and it wasn't a separate Air Force till 1947.
Now, did you go through a boot camp?
No.
So once you joined the Army Air Corps, where did you start out? Where were you first stationed at?
At Ontario, California.
That's where it started then.
Mhm.
And then where did you go from there?
And I went to Victorville, California for advanced. And then from there I went to Sebring, Florida for B-17 transition.
Now, when you first started in the Army Air Corps, you knew how to fly at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and so they knew you were going to be a pilot then.
Well, I was going through pilot training, you know.
They were looking for pilots at that point.
That's right. That's what.
Was there any thing unusual or special about all those Army or those pilots in those days, those early pilots in World War II?
Oh, I don't think so, any more so than they are about pilots today. Except there were fewer pilots those days than there are now.
How did they decide what kind of plane you were going to get chosen for? Was there certain
It was just luck of the draw. I didn't. They had some. I knew that I was going to go to bombers primarily because they sent me to a twin engine for advanced flying school, AT-9s.
So, for somebody who doesn't know about planes too much, the B's stand for bomber,
That's right.
and the AT would be an attack trainer.
The AT is advanced trainer.
Advanced trainer. So, what was the first bomber plane that you flew then?
The B-17.
Can you describe what kind of plane that is and what it's like to fly something like that?
Well, it's a very famous World War II airplane. It has 4 engines and has turrets on it and gunners, and a navigator and a bombardier and a radio operator and 2 pilots. And it was a heavy bomber. B-25, for instance, the one airplane that Doolittle went to Tokyo in, was a medium bomber, and this was a heavy bomber, and it carried a 10,000-pound bomb load, and and it had a lot of range for those days, and this, in fact, the Boeing company, there were 10,000 B-17s built during World War II, and we lost 5,000 of them in combat.
So when you're when you're on the West Coast, were you just pretty much know you were going to go to the Pacific versus going to
No, we didn't know anything. We didn't know anything till we got out of Sebring.